In this video, I'll show you how to flatten this nested object and get the output in the following manner. This was asked to me in an interview and it's quite an interesting question. Basically, we are required to flatten a nested object that contains arrays and objects as children. The task is to make the object flat. There should be no nested children left and everything should be on a single level. As you can see in the final output, the keys that are an object, those objects have their respective keys concatenated to the parent key and their values are equal to the last child key element's value. So characteristics and height will become characteristics.height equals 6 feet and so on. Now let's write the logic for this. I'll first create a function named flatten obj that will take an object as its parameter. And I'll call flatten obj down here and pass the response object as an argument initially. Now inside the function, first initialize an empty object called result, which will hold the flattened key value pairs. Then loop through the properties of the input object obj using a for-in loop. For each property I will check if the type of the property's value is an object and not an array using the type of operator and array.isArray function. If it is not an object, then in the else condition, I'll directly add it to the result object with the same key I. And if it's an object, I'll recursively call the flatten obj function on that object, the nested object in this case, and then store the result in the temp variable. I'll then loop through the properties of the temp object using another for-in loop. For each property j in temp, I'll create a new property in the result object by concatenating the outer key I and the inner key j with a dot separator, and the value associated with this new property is the corresponding value in the temp object. This will allow the dot concatenation to occur between the parent and child keys. And then I'll return the result at the end as it will contain the final output. So basically, when the for loop reaches the characteristics object, the temp will call flatten again, which will return this object itself, and then will concatenate the keys of that object with the characteristic key one by one in this second for loop. And similarly for the text stack object, the temp will call flatten obj again, which will finally return an object like this, containing language, framework.name and framework.version as its keys. And then the keys of that object will get concatenated with the text stack key one by one in this second for loop. So now to check the results, finally I'll console log the flatten obj function call, and now as you can see on the console, our flatten obj function has flattened the entire nested structure into a single level object where keys are generated by concatenating the parent keys with dot notation to represent the hierarchical structure. So that's all for the video. If you found it insightful, don't forget to like and subscribe.